Hello, folks, and welcome to Hangouts and Headlines, November 11th, 2022. It's Casual Friday. I hope everybody's ready to have a fun, relaxing hangout and headline session, although that might not apply if your name is Elon Musk. If it is Elon Musk, you're probably doing all right financially, but maybe not as all right as you were doing about 10 days ago. Either way, I hope everybody's ready for some fun. Yes, chat, I see you. I was 90 seconds late or what have you, but that's the cost of actually having me research and make sure I'm ready to talk about whatever it is I'm going to talk about on any given day. Sometimes the articles run longer than I think. I do my best, but I always try to stay within 5 minutes, which of course is the 5-minute rule where you're allowed to leave high school or college classes if the teacher doesn't show up on time, right? Didn't you have that? No, nobody had that? Oh, well. In any event, how are you doing? Where are you hanging out from? What's everybody thinking about this Friday? Are you watching the implosion at Twitter? Do you have some early thoughts before we go through a handful of articles on this topic? What are you doing this weekend? Are you seeing Wakanda Forever? I've long talked about the fact that I absolutely adore Ryan Coogler's work. I think it's going to be a very difficult transition from Black Panther to Wakanda Forever, but the reviews are very good. I just don't trust anyone that reviews movies. So are you going to see that? Are you going to do anything else this weekend? What do you got cooking? Akaruki says I was 3 minutes late. Isn't that 1 unit of Rob time? Oh, it's not even. I mean, what is 1 unit of Rob time? 15 minutes? Yeah, I don't know if I was 3 minutes late. I've got it at 7:33 right now. Either way, hey, folks, I'm doing my best, and I appreciate you waiting it out with me. I know it's trouble. I know it's difficult, but here we are. Rusty Robot says, good day to you, Rick. Good day, Rusty Robots. Andor continues to be a Star Wars masterpiece. Hoping to see Black Panther, Wakanda Forever tonight. Andor's fantastic. I can't speak highly enough about Andor. Disney has disappointed me time and time again with their Star Wars ownership of that brand. Give everything to Andor. Whoever's running Andor, Tony Gilroy, his team, whatever else, give everything, or at least like the grounded rebellion type politics portion of Star Wars, give that to that team forever, ever. Because Andor is fantastic, and I will continue to watch as long as you keep putting out stuff like that. Matthew says, going to see Wakanda Forever on Sunday. Also, I think we had 15 minutes late before you can go in France. I think it was always an urban legend whenever I went to school. It was from like a Saved by the Bell episode, just to date myself. But yeah, it was in college. I remember waiting 20, 25 minutes to see if the professor would show up and then leaving, reading the book while I was in class or otherwise just entertaining myself. We didn't have cell phones back in the day, kids. So you just had to kind of talk to your colleagues and read your textbook or whatever it is at the time before you head off to the union and don't pay attention. If I remember correctly, Rob bills at tenths of an hour. So I think 6 minutes is 1 unit of Rob time. There you go. That's some lawyer jokes for you. Yeah, you can bill it tenths or quarters, basically, is the way that these things work in the legal field. So yeah, if he's billing it tenths, it's keep track of every 6 minutes of your time. Good luck to you. Dad says, I'm hanging right down the street. You're totally right about Andor. Hey, Pops Hoeg. See, I told you I would catch you without you having to super chat me. You don't need to worry about that. And welcome this morning. Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually Pops Hoeg and myself. We watch Andor together on Fridays. So we're scheduled to watch some today. Isn't that fun? I'd invite you all over, but there's 330 people already in chat at 7:35 in the morning. And I just don't think we have the living quarters for it. But if you want to watch Andor sometime this afternoon, you can think that you're watching it with us. And we'll talk about it on the next Hangouts and Headlines. Looking forward to it, Dad. Love to see you here. Good day, Papa Hoeg says, Night Eyes. Crazy Cat Queen says, is it crazy that I'm selecting classes for next semester and I'm trying to make sure I don't miss Hoeg Law? And yes, the 15-minute rule existed, but it was teaching assistant professor dependent. There you go. If you don't want that absent, if you don't want that tardy. I always thought in university it was kind of weird to have grades that were all related to tardy or absent. I always felt if you could learn the material, if you were showing up for the tests of the knowledge of that material, then I don't know what you're keeping track of vis-a-vis tardies and absences. Some of the professors we talked about the education system last week. Some of the professors weren't making it more understandable for a young Hoeg. And so I would take it on myself and go and read things myself. Or I would, play hooky occasionally. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Carrie with a super chat already this morning. Hoeg, I saw Jordan Peterson being interviewed, and he was suggesting Twitter and the internet in general could be a better place by not allowing anonymous posting. Thoughts? Well, I think that's maybe true for certain definitions of better, right? When we're talking about better place, I certainly think that there is the notion that if you have anonymity attached to what it is that you want to say, you're going to be more freewheeling. You're probably going to be more provocative. You're going to be more outrageous. I think everybody knows this, right? You even know somebody online that maybe you know who their name is, but they're anonymous and they're flying around. If you were to meet them in school tomorrow or work tomorrow or anything else, church, and they were to talk to your face, they would not be as aggressive. They would not be as maybe politicized or polarized or tribal or what have you in that space, in person, facing another human being in front of them. And I think the internet does foment that a little bit. That said, I think anonymity is very useful to a lot of people, that you get more truth content from time to time from folks that wouldn't be willing to do that under their own name or under their own brand name or things that can attach to their work, for instance. So I think we're in a bit of a difficult situation there when you've got people that want to hold folks' completely unrelated thoughts vis-a-vis their work to their work. And I don't blame people for that necessarily. We can talk about outrage mobs. We can talk about cancel culture and things like that at some point if you want. But if you've got that and you're mandated to be in your own identity, I think that you're going to get a general softening, a massive chilling effect of the content volume that is out there. Now, are you going to get rid of some trolls? You're going to get rid of some garbage? You're going to get rid of some hateful content? Absolutely. But I think you're going to get rid of some value too. And I wouldn't be so quick to just say that there isn't that much baby with that bathwater that you're throwing out when you do that. I tend to like anonymity. I tend to like what it offers, but it does lead to certain amounts of trash. I hope that's a good enough answer. It's a lawyer's answer. Maybe not. I tend to lean towards keeping anonymous. But that's just one person's position. Let me know what you think, Carrie. And I appreciate the super chat. That's awesome. And she also welcomes Papa Hoeg. Lots of welcomes for Papa Hoeg. Look at this. Papa Hoeg, you're loved here in this space early in the morning. Callista, now I'm imagining Hoeg's house being stuffed full like a phone booth with college kids. We definitely couldn't handle 404 now, people. I like 404, by the way, for this video. We could just stay at that amount. It's a 404 error. Who knows? Where's Elon Musk's master plan? Error. File not found. Oh, these jokes just write themselves. Priya says, good morning, Hoeg. I'm Colorado, about to head into the OR for a long day of back-to-back surgeries. I'm so sorry. You make my med school mornings happier. Oh, you're not in surgeries. You have to go observe surgeries or do surgeries. I'm not familiar with the specifics of med school. You don't actually do surgery as a med school student, right? You observe it, probably. I don't know. They have to teach you surgery at some point. These are the questions I have for doctors and medical professionals. When do you do the things in med school? But either way, have a great day. And I'm so glad that I can make your med school mornings a little bit happier with a smiley face emoji. Shannon G, on time more than not, even 3 minutes off is okay. I've waited sometimes up to 30 minutes for other streamers. Thanks for doing this 4 days a week. Hey, I wish I could do 5. It just doesn't work. I die. I crumple up and fall apart at 5. So 4 it is. We're having fun with it. I do my best. People are just joking. I don't take any of that seriously from the chat. But I will tell you this, right? You know me now. You know my personality. Every time somebody says in chat at about the 2-minute mark, oh, he's late, he can't read a clock or whatever, I pause for another 30 seconds. It's just the way I am. It's just the way I'm wired. Happy lunchtime from Blackburn, England, debating what to eat. What do you guys in England like? Bangers and mash? Fish and chips? Where the chips are the fries? Yeah. And then the chips are crisps. Crisps are chips. Anyway, yeah, there's a Ted Lasso scene about this. I'm sure I can work on it. Carrie says Andor is really excellent. This week definitely delivered. No spoilers. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm behind like 2 episodes, 3 episodes, something like that. Britt says I've not seen a minute of Andor, but isn't it a prequel to a prequel? I'm not sure how suspenseful I could find it. It's not about suspense, although it's got a pretty broad cast of characters, many of which are eligible for danger and death, if that's what you need in your kind of shows like this. But for the most part, it's really, really invested in kind of exploring what the politics and logistics are of starting a rebellion against an empire, right? And they do a great job of diving into that. There are scenes, which is just kind of Imperial designates talking in a round room, that are some of my favorite in Star Wars history. Now, this is me. I'm a lawyer. I'm a politics guy. I will defend the prequels for how cool it was to watch the Republic descend into empire, that the politics were what made that interesting. rather than whatever else was going on in the movie. So take that with a grain of salt. But if you like any of that, Andor is doing it in spades. And then the fact that they are doing heists and prison breaks and all sorts of things just makes it all the better. So Andor is fantastic. Highest recommendation from me. But, you know, reasonable minds can differ. I'd be interested to see thoughts from someone that really doesn't like it, for instance. Sardinism says, I think not allowing anonymity would make it worse. People already get doxxed and swatted with anonymous posting allowed, and employers would all be able to monitor your online activity no matter what. I tend to agree, Sardinisms. Now I'm out there, right? You can tell I'm not anonymous online. It is Hoeg Law. It is Richard Hoeg. I say the city where I work at the top of every Virtual Legality episode. Are all of these choices wise? Perhaps not. But when this channel started, when my social media presence started, it was to say, hey, look, I got a law firm. If you've got some business needs, especially around Southeast Michigan, let me know, and maybe I can help. And to have those conversations and to talk about what it is that I do. So it never made any sense for me to be anonymous online. But certainly when you start to get threats or DMs or emails, you start to reconsider your life choices on these things. So I do think it would be worse if you had to be your specific identification that could be tied to other parts of the real world. Just in my opinion, but I tend to agree. That, Sarah, in overseas markets and non-democratic countries, anonymity is critical to life and safety. Twitter is huge overseas for organizing protests, etc. That's a great point, that, Sarah, and we're going to see it be a reference point for one of the issues that anonymous Twitter lawyer has in their article in The Verge. So we're going to talk about that. One thing that's going to pop up is whether or not that is what Twitter should be doing vis-a-vis being a business, because Elon Musk seems to be very much focused on trying to figure out how to get some revenue out of this particular platform and maybe killing it in the process. We'll see. We're going to talk about all this. It's been a week for Elon Musk and Twitter. Kelly C., has anyone ever read The Circle? I feel like Elon would embody that company like no other, and Zuckerberg to some extent, and Google before they pulled back a bit. I think I saw a movie called The Circle. I don't think I read a book called The Circle. Papa Hoeg is very thankful to you guys saying hi to him this morning. That's very awesome. Hoeg not found. 404 chat not found. We need 404 likes as well. Well, hey, if you can get to 404 likes, that'd be really impressive. I appreciate it, but I don't know about that. We got to be reasonable in our requests here. 489 people in the chat, 404 likes. That's a high percentage. The Heathers with the super chat. Thank you so much, The Heathers. 2009, when I joined Twitter. Full name was my handle, just like everyone else. Changed it to anonymous 6 to 7 years later. Emoji. Emoji. Brain explosion emoji. Wonder what happened then. So 6 or 7 years later is 2016. We had a new election. We had a different president, The Heathers. Is that what you're pointing to? I'm going to say that that's what she's pointing to. Let's see here. What else do we got going on? Lots of fun chats already this morning. It's a very fast chat this morning. I'm very enthused to have people with so much energy on a Friday morning ready to talk about Elon Musk, Twitter, and implosions like we have never seen before in the social media space. Britt Cormier, now that I know the formula, I can keep Hoeg offline forever. Thanks for giving me the keys. Hey, Brett, if you could just, put those specific, oh, he's late, he doesn't know how to read a clock, in super chats before the show, we can work on this together, friend. No, I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's not quite every time, but I will tell you the instinct is there to be like, oh, well, then we're waiting. It's just who I am. That's probably all in a bit of all of us lawyers. Please, no spoilers. I haven't seen the latest Andor episode, which I heard is hotting up. Haven't heard that phrase before, but it probably is hotting up. I'm like 3 episodes behind, MZ. You're not going to get any spoilers from me. Like the background, political intrigue, and foregrounding, the intricacies of the twisted machinery, etc. Yeah, you're not getting any spoilers from me. Don't you worry about it. We're not doing spoilers here. I haven't seen Wakanda Forever. I haven't seen the last 2 or 3 Andor episodes. I like to let those Andors line up because I think they're basically all three episode movies, and then we watch 3 in a row. In general, is how we do it. So we're waiting. Chris Mullen, still not Sarah or Sarah, says, I use my real name. Christine Mullen is my real name. Well, welcome, Christine. I want my friends to be able to find me. I like using Aussie Chris as well, or Aussie Chris. Now, to be fair, Christine, you do also have the fact that you are still not Sarah or Sarah in there. So not Sarah is also an appellation that you might be using. And there are tons of Sarahs around. They're everywhere. Thanks, Rob. Fluffy Pink Chaos, am I the only one who sees Musk's disastrous running of Twitter similar to Trump's disastrous running of America? Oh my goodness, it's early in the morning to go there. It is early in the morning to go there. Here's the good news, right? Here's the difference between governments and corporations, folks. And I know we have this fight. Corporations are very strong. People have this argument with me all the time. You don't have to use Twitter. You don't live in Twitter. Twitter can blow up and it might suck. I like using Twitter. It's been very useful for me in my professional life, but it'll just go away. You got a government that you don't like, whether that's Trump or Biden or anybody in between, you can't really easily abscond from that situation. So it is at least distinct that way. We can, even as a big time user of Twitter, look at Elon Musk and say, I wonder if he's going to blow the thing up. And feel a little bit separated from it. A lot more so than if you have to look at your president, your executive, your judiciary, your legislature, whoever, and say, I wonder if they're going to blow the thing up. A little bit more fraught. But I will save the specific partisan talk to other venues outside of this one. Reasonable minds can differ here, most definitely. Rusty Robot says it's definitely not just a lawyer thing to want to sit there and be like, oh, okay, I'm late. Well, I'll be later then. Well, fair enough. Claude Simeon says eventually they find the Death Star plans. Yes, spoiler alert. I know, prequels. It can still be a good show set in prequel land. Yes, I would advance Star Wars in some way, but I don't trust them to do that anyway. So as long as they stay safe and talk about Andor, it's all good. Mr. Waffles, maybe related to Waffle Bear, I don't know, says it's never too early to make fun of politicians. Tongue out laughing emoji. Perhaps not. T with a super chat. I had a friend send me a link to data aggregate site with my name, my current address, and phone number. It was scary. Oh, yeah. Well, the thing of it is we keep a lot of public information, at least in the United States. I can't know where you're talking from exactly, but we keep a lot of public information that really just isn't that hard to piece together, right? We have property ownership on public roles. That'll give you your address. That address can be tied to a phone number. The work phone numbers can be tied to you separately. Then you can use things that reference those things to figure out what handles people are using and potentially look through various forums and locations online for that handle. It's not like rocket science as a version of detectiveship. And the way that our infrastructure was built was before anybody would really kind of deign to do all that. And now it's can be done by anybody that's a bad actor. So yeah, being out here online constantly is waking you up to these kinds of things. And I think everybody needs to be aware of them, and we need to be thinking about ways to limit them. I certainly think that anonymity at least helps on the margin and maybe helps a large portion of people that aren't likely to have people attack them. We're going to talk about the difference between kind of celebrity approach and non-celebrity approach when we talk about the Twitter verified checks, because I think the folks that are most likely to be hurt by what Twitter is doing right now with those checks are probably folks that are either not on Twitter or people that are relatively minor internet presences. I hesitate to say myself because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but like folks that aren't LeBron James, folks that aren't IGN or Coca-Cola or Nintendo. They can police themselves. They can kind of keep track of those various things. You start getting like, I don't know, a D-list celebrity or a Twitch streamer with a few 100,000 followers. Those are the folks that I really think are right to be concerned about what's happening on Twitter. Gaming Forte in here with a hot take. Mass Effect 2 is better than Mass Effect 1. Just leaving that hand grenade there. Have a great day, Hoeg. Very happy for your growth in the content you release. Thank you so much, Gaming Forte. That is very awesome of you. Green heart emoji. Green, maybe for Xbox? I don't know. But yes, Mass Effect 2 versus Mass Effect 1, one of the constant debate refrains here on Hoeg Law, over at the Iron Lords, Defining Duke, and various other places that I talk about video games. I will continue to say Mass Effect 1 was the game that had discovery and world building and kind of Star Trek appreciation for science and investigating things. Mass Effect 2 was a legitimately good corridor shooting fest with some good characters and maybe a limited plot as compared to 1 and 3. But people love it, and I don't blame that. I'm not going to take that love away from anybody. I'm just going to say that I prefer Mass Effect 1. I prefer that Star Trek approach of exploring the galaxy and learning new things over shooting things in dingy places. But those dingy places are well represented, and a lot of people really loved it. So I'm not going to take that away, Gaming 14. Thank you so much for the super chat. That is very generous of you, and I really appreciate it. To everyone in Poland and of Polish descent, raise his hand, hope you have a peaceful and enjoyable Independence Day. Is it Polish Independence Day? Thank you so much, Anna. That is a wonderful message. That's very appreciated. And I am most certainly of Polish descent. I'm almost fully 50% Polish. I think I am 50% Polish, actually. I have to go look. So, yes, absolutely. MSCLRHD says you can create suspense and other emotions despite knowing what happens. It's like rewatching a twist story, like Sixth Sense, Babylon 5, The Usual Suspects, etc. Do you think Babylon 5 is a twist story? It's got some twists in it. It's interesting. I always thought Babylon 5 was really good at foreshadowing, honestly. But that doesn't mean it's not a twist, I suppose. Callista says, yes, but in ME1, you couldn't romance Garrus, and Garrus is the best space husband. Oh, see, we're getting into people's, boudoirs here. We're getting into people's behind-the-scenes love of video games. You got your favorite romantic partner in Mass Effect, and if he's not romanceable in one of the games, well, you're just going to like that other game a little bit better. I can't even remember who I romanced in Mass Effect. The BioWare romance options always make me feel a little bit. It's not right. I don't like it so much when you escalate those romances, and they're all kind of very artificial and not awesome. But if you love Garrus, that's great. I think maybe mine was Liara. I can't remember, honestly. Liara was voiced by Lightning. I think I recall liking that at the time. Lightning being a Final Fantasy 13 character. We're just really nerding out here in Hangouts this morning, which is fine. Hangouts is about hanging out with each other, being free with our personalities. As Ian said yesterday, everybody's weird. Everybody's weird. Somebody comes into his DM, says he's weird, and he says, yes, sir, you got me. Absolutely. Caitlin says today is also Remembrance Day here in Canada, lest we forget. And I want to say today is Veterans Day in America. I don't know all the holidays. I apologize. But absolutely. Yeah, if you want to reference whatever it is where you are, let me know. November 11th seems to be a big day for a lot of folks. So absolutely. Let me know that. Yes, fully 50%. It's fully 50%. I know my grandparents. Yeah. All right. What else we got here? We're a fun group for sure. Yes, today is Veterans Day. Good. I thought it was. Thank you. Veterans Day, bank holiday, no transactions today. I think that's why I knew that, honestly. Babylon 5 isn't really a twist story, but there are spoiler moments relating to various characters and plots that you can see hints of in previous episodes, so I think it counts. Yeah, the foreshadowing. Oh, definitely. Definitely. There's a lot of prophecy in Babylon 5, so you get a lot of that. And then there's one specific plot line with time travel that is well handled and a little twisty. So, absolutely. All right, folks. Well, it seems like we're all out of making fun of me for being a couple minutes late, talking about Andor, Wakanda Forever, Babylon 5, Mass Effect, and anything else. So I think we should pop in to see how Elon Musk is doing. What do you think? I think we should. All right. So let's take a look at this. So when I set up this video yesterday, this was the only article that was really entirely about Elon Musk and what was happening at Twitter. And from the point when this article gets published at about the middle of the day yesterday, there is just an absolute waterfall of news, topics, news stories, and everything else in between. Certainly tweets. So we're going to go through this. We're going to talk about this because we're going to talk about what this video was originally going to be to start out with, which is that I think The Verge is a little bit incurious in reporting what is happening here on Twitter with respect to a Slack message that is given by a lead lawyer at Twitter. And I think this lead lawyer is perhaps, it's a bit of a screed. Let's say that. It's a bit of a sky is falling, Chicken Little type phenomenon under new management. And this honestly isn't super odd, especially if the company that is changing hands had at least presented to its employees, its staff, or otherwise that it was something other than a for-profit money-making business endeavor. And what I mean by that is if in bringing people on board, you've presented them as we're something different, we're changing the world, X, Y, or Z. It doesn't have to just be Twitter. It can be any other thing. if it comes under new management and that management rolls in a leveraged buyout situation, acting for all the world like a one-person hedge fund, and decides to change the way things operate, you can get this kind of reaction that is very much like, my God, he just wants to make money with this thing, which is primarily what this reaction is going to be. But I do think when you're reporting on it, you have an obligation to at least take one step back and look at the situation and say, well, this person is unhappy with the direction. I might be unhappy with the direction. There's nothing wrong with that. And what they are saying is very passionate, very loud. There's a lot of what we might consider hearsay if this were trying to be presented in a court of law. And maybe we should take that into account instead of kind of presenting it as truth fact. But let's take a look at what The Verge does. Elon Musk is putting Twitter at risk of billions in fines, warns company lawyer. Accurate. Totally accurate. Meanwhile, Musk's personal lawyer is telling people Elon puts rockets into space. He's not afraid of the FTC. Ooh, all right. So we're going to have to see where that's sourced from. And one thing I would ask is, as we watch where this is sourced from and how it gets reported, consider everything else that anybody reports on, but especially here, The Verge, that we don't get the background, the primary source material that they are using as their source, right? They go out with a sub-headline here that Musk's personal lawyer is, fact, telling people Elon puts rockets into space. He's not afraid of the FTC. And we'll see what they are basing that on in just a minute. And then you could ask the question in this article and other articles about just what journalists are basing their true facts on when they report on these things. The Verge. Twitter's privacy and security teams are in turmoil after Elon Musk's changes to the service bypassed its standard data governance processes. Now, a company lawyer is encouraging employees to seek whistleblower protection if you feel uncomfortable about anything you're being asked to do. Now, just from that opening paragraph, if you can tell that this particular company lawyer doesn't have anything specific in mind, you'll be right that they don't. It's just kind of all this bad stuff is going to happen. I anticipate this. I anticipate that. I heard this. I heard that. And keep the whistleblower stuff in mind. The company's chief privacy officer, Damian Kieran, chief information security officer, Leah Kistner, and chief compliance officer, Marianne Fogarty, have all resigned, according to two employees and an internal message seen by The Verge. Kistner confirmed their departure in a tweet on Thursday. So this isn't great. This isn't a great day for Twitter, at least if you want management to stay the same. Elon Musk fired 3,700 odd people, at least as reported to us, on that particular issue. He fired a lot of upper management the day he takes office, and this is going to be basically the rest of the people in those management echelons. And so folks are rightly freaking out, including folks that might otherwise have a financial interest in Twitter. This is all legitimate storytelling. This is a legitimate news item, but we have to watch how it's reported. In a note posted to Twitter's Slack and viewable to all staff that was obtained by The Verge, an attorney on the company's privacy team wrote, Elon has shown that his only priority with Twitter users is how to monetize them. I do not believe he cares about the human rights activists, the dissidents, our users in unmonetizable regions, and all the other users who have made Twitter the global town square you have all spent so long building and we all love. Now, this is maybe entirely legitimate, that this is what Twitter was building. This is what you all love. This is why you're here at Twitter, and Elon Musk is changing things. It is not at all to be unanticipated that when new management comes in, they are wanting to use their assets in a new way. Generally speaking, when a buyout like this happens, especially a leveraged one, the notion is that the assets are being incorrectly used. They're not being maximized for whatever potential and making money they actually have in the corporate form. Elon Musk rolling in and saying, you guys are doing it wrong and we need to make some changes is not unanticipated. What is unanticipated is the rapidity that he's acting under, and also the rapidity that he is rolling back the choices that he has made. So when we did Muskapalooza earlier this week, one of the things we mentioned was that they were planning on making two specific check marks. The blue check mark they were going to sell to people, and then an official check mark to mark the folks that were actually verified, that were official. This happened for about a half hour a few days ago. Elon Musk says he's killing it. And then if you're following Twitter at all, it was back as of yesterday. I wasn't able to check it before the episode today. So if you want to go look at something that is an official brand Twitter profile, you can let me know whether official is currently on or off. This is the kind of move fast and break things that makes people a little concerned, especially if they want to put money into a platform. So Elon Musk is moving fast and breaking things, and he has tweets out there that says, hey, Twitter's going to do a lot of dumb stuff in the near future. And yet that's an excuse that doesn't really make it okay. if you are now thinking about investing in or otherwise participating in a company with somebody that looks like they don't know what they are doing, regardless of whether or not that's the fact, the optics are that they don't know what they're doing, you have to give pause, especially if you have multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns that you're going to choose. But from this quote, it very much sounds to me like, okay, he wants to make it revenue positive, and Twitter's first mission isn't human rights, isn't dissidents, isn't getting communications platforms to people that are not monetizable. Twitter's first course of business is survival. Twitter's first course of business is making sure it has enough money to continue to exist. And what Elon Musk has said, and you don't have to believe him, is that they were losing $4 million a day. Twitter has never had significant cash flow. Twitter has had a minor platform, but significant enough to exist, that wasn't properly maximizing its advertising revenue or what have you throughout the entire course of its existence, but especially in the past 11 months. Elon Musk says we got to go in there and change things. And Elon Musk might be being very stupid about how he's changing things. I tend to lean that way, honestly, watching him operate. But it's not wrong to say our first course of business is to make sure that we're not bleeding money and that we have to exist in order to actually have a platform at all. So this sounds to me like someone who is deeply invested in what was sold to them as Twitter before and is unhappy with thinking of Twitter as a business, which is fine. You don't have to like it. Maybe you think Twitter should be a utility. Maybe you think Twitter should be a nonprofit or something like that. That's a perfectly valid argument to have. But since this person spent $40 billion buying it and looks at the bottom line financials, which maybe he didn't look at before, who knows, Elon Musk, folks, and now says, well, we're going to have to move to subscription revenue, it's worthwhile to think of the fact that, yep, that makes sense. And then when you're kind of banging this bell, you're making this call out that this is ridiculous that he's trying to do these things, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to give that particular position this kind of maximal credence. But we'll get to the whole note because The Verge, to its credit, puts the whole Slack note in this article. Now, they also want to point out this FTC issue. The FTC reached a settlement with Twitter in May after the company was caught using personal user info to target ads. If Twitter doesn't comply with that agreement, the FTC can issue fines reaching into the billions of dollars, according to the lawyer's note. Okay, so let's back up and talk about the FTC a little bit. So Twitter got into a lot of trouble with the FTC. And the basics of this is from May of 2022. So you'll note that's old management. But the basics of this is Twitter told users that they could control who had access to their tweets and private messages. But according to the FTC, which is reporting it on itself in the third person on its own website, they didn't have reasonable safeguards to make sure those choices were honored. And they collected information for two-factor identification that they then used to target ads, right? In addition to using people's phone numbers and emails addresses for the protective purposes the company claimed, Twitter also used the information to serve people targeted ads, and they took a $150 million penalty for that. Now, as part of this, they then sign a consent decree, which is probably a phrase you're pretty familiar with in virtual legality right now. The regulators ask you to do something, you sign a consent decree, and then you are contractually bound to those regulators for some period of time. In that consent decree, and this is really what I think the lawyer is getting at, you've got a provision here which says, basically, whenever you modify a product, service, or practice that does not pose a material risk to privacy, security, or confidentiality, you have to write up a report explaining why it doesn't. And every time that it could pose a material risk to the privacy, security, confidentiality of the data that you're collecting, you have to make a whole privacy report document called a privacy review. Describe how it works, describe how it's changing, do all these various things, right? And this is a big, long government document. We're not that interested in what the consent decree says. Overall, though, Twitter has agreed that because they did these silly things with their two-factor authentication, even though they don't admit to it, that they settled with the FTC over this, that they are going to be more responsible for collecting data and privacy. Now, you'll note that this is basically an internal review for the most part, but the FTC can swoop in and cause problems. And when you say billions of dollars, chances are what you're thinking of is when the FTC imposed a $5 billion penalty on Facebook. Now, the primary issue you have with this, if you're analyzing things as inside counsel to Twitter, is that the FTC is basing its penalties essentially on your revenue levels, right? They want to make sure that it hurts. They want to make sure it doesn't kill you necessarily, but that you think about doing these various things. And you see highest penalties in privacy enforcement actions, generally speaking, $150 million, $230 million, $275 million, $5 billion. And part of this comes because Facebook is enormous. Facebook generates $55.8 billion in revenues in 2018. Now, they're a little bit less enormous now that they've cast off 11,000 employees and invested almost entirely in building VR desks and office equipment for Mark Zuckerberg and whatever it is he's looking to get out of that. But you're going to tie these things to this kind of number. So if you're a lawyer, yes, you could say it could cost us billions. But considering that Twitter really doesn't have anything close to the revenue level of Facebook, you're probably looking at these circles more than these circles. Now, that's just my opinion. Lawyers can have different opinions. I've said you get 4 lawyers in a room, you're going to get 6 opinions. That's absolutely true. It remains true to this day. But again, we have to take the tilt. This is a person disgruntled, looking at the direction of the company, unhappy with how they have spent their blood, sweat, and tears over the past few years, and going out with this wide billboard message to every employee at the company as they leave. This is the slamming the cabinet doors of an exit, and it has to be taken into account because that is going to change how people interpret this kind of news. The note goes on to say that its author, who The Verge knows the identity of but is choosing not to disclose. So let's stop here a little bit, right? So reporters decide to keep people anonymous all the time. We see it. We take it with a grain of salt. This is somebody that is 100% known by the people at Twitter. This is somebody that the most important people to this story already are aware of who's speaking. So there's no real protection here. And then The Verge doesn't even go so far as to do what normal articles do, which is to say, in the interests of safety or blah, 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 some excuse for why they're keeping this person anonymous. So they just say, we know the identity, but we're choosing not to disclose. Why do you even have to tell us you know the identity? I don't understand the purpose of this clause other than it raises my eyebrows and gets me to cover you in Hangouts and Headlines. Surely the 743 people currently watching this episode is not enough to move the needle for The Verge on these kinds of topics. So I can't speak to why you would frame it in this particular way. We know, but we're not telling. Okay. And then in the very next line, what you're actually describing is has heard Alex Spiro, the current head of legal, say that Elon is willing to take on a huge amount of risk in relation to this company and its users because Elon puts rockets into space. He's not afraid of the FTC. So I heard it from my cousin's sister's boyfriend's roommate's mother's daughter's dog walker that Alex Spiro says, Elon says that he doesn't care about what the FTC does. Okay. Musk's new legal department is now asking engineers to self-certify compliance with the FTC rules, which is interesting. But remember, this is being reported to you as fact. And other privacy laws, according to the lawyer's note and another employee familiar with the matter who requested anonymity to speak without the company's permission. The employee said this week's launch of the revamped Twitter Blue subscription disregarded the company's normal privacy and security review, with a red team reviewing potential risks the night before the launch. The people normally tasked with this stuff were given little notice, little time, and unreasonable to think it was comprehensive. None of the red team's recommendations were implemented before Twitter Blue's relaunch, the employee said. Musk has signaled that one of his first priorities is rebuilding Twitter's infrastructure. During a Twitter Spaces audio conversation with advertisers on Wednesday, he said he wanted to redo the company's software stack so that the same technology is powering the relevance of tweets and the relevance of ads. We have to be adventuresome here. In a statement shared with The Verge after this story was published, an unnamed FTC spokesperson said the agency was tracking recent developments at Twitter with deep concern. No CEO or company is above the law, and companies must follow our consent decrees. Our revised consent order gives us new tools to ensure compliance, and we are prepared to use them. And maybe the FTC will. On Thursday evening, Musk sent an email to employees obtained by The Verge to address concerns about the FTC consent order, saying, I cannot emphasize enough that Twitter will do whatever it takes to adhere to both the letter and spirit of the FTC consent decree, which is exactly the right stance to take. There are different ways to comply with these requirements the FTC has put forth. So let's take a look at what this lawyer, this anonymous lawyer, actually said to get a flavor for what this Slack message is actually all about. And you'll see exactly why I have the issues I have with it. Twitter is a remote-first workplace and has operated as such for years. It is a fundamental change to our employment contracts to require a 40-hour-a-week in-office requirement. I do not personally believe that Twitter employees have an obligation to return to the office, certainly not on no notice, if at all. This is a lawyer, remember? So this is an interesting first paragraph as it stands. I don't know whether there's more to this message. The Verge says this is the whole thing that they wrote in the stack, probably in a conversation about Elon Musk's request that they all return to the office. But they say it's a fundamental change to our employment contracts, and yet I don't actually see where the contract otherwise allows for remote work. So this reads to me as a lawyer reading this kind of sentiment that the contracts actually probably do require you to work in the office, and that there have been essentially implied waivers, certainly during the pandemic, that said, okay, you don't have to come in. And now this lawyer is saying, we've operated as such for years. That's could take you back to 2020, right? And it's a fundamental change to our employment contracts to require a 40-hour work week. In-office requirement, maybe not. You can point to the contracts on this stuff, and they don't want to come back to the office. Now, they're also leaving at the time, but this doesn't strike me as likely to be very accurate if Elon Musk is making the request. I also remind all tweeps, at least in the US, that we have an unlimited PTO policy. All tweeps are able to take PTO. Perhaps today's a good day to take some rest and recharge. Sure, unlimited PTO policies are a big time risk because, well, frankly, you don't have any guarantees, and the company can fire you as they will. And Elon Musk has said, I don't have the article up for it or the tweet up for it, but Elon Musk has said that if you don't show up to the office, I will consider your resignation accepted. Everyone here should also know that our CISO, Chief Privacy Officer, and Chief Compliance Officer all resigned last night. This news will be buried in the return to office drama. I believe that is intentional. Okay. Over the last 2 weeks, Elon has shown that he cares only about recouping the losses he's incurring as a result of failing to get out of his binding obligation to buy Twitter. He chose to enter into that agreement. All of us are being put through this as a result of the choices he made. Elon has shown that his only priority with Twitter users is to how to monetize them. I do not believe he cares about the human rights activists, the dissidents, our users in unmonetizable regions, and all the other users who have made Twitter the global town square you've all spent so long building, and we all love. I have heard Alex Spiro, current head of legal, say that Elon is willing to take on a huge amount of risk in relation to this company and its users because Elon puts rocket into space. He's not afraid of the FTC. I have heard another leader in the legal department say that because of the tight SLAs of 2 weeks, between product inception and launch, legal will have to shift the burden to engineers to self-certify compliance with the FTC requirements and other laws. This will put huge amount of personal, professional, and legal risk on engineers. I anticipate that all of you will be pressured by management into pushing out changes that will likely lead to major incidents. So we have multiple things happening here. I heard Alex Spiro say something about what Elon is willing to do based on a quote that this person says. So we're a couple of layers deep in hearsay. We've got I've heard another legal department person say that the engineers are going to have to do the self-certification. Now, The Verge actually has another employee that is anonymous that is saying the same thing, and we don't quite know whether they're staying with the company or not because of all of the tumult there. All of this is extremely dangerous for our users. Also, given that the FTC can and will fine Twitter billions of dollars pursuant to the FTC consent order, extremely detrimental to Twitter's longevity as a platform. Our users deserve so much better than this. They disagree with the management direction. If you feel uncomfortable, here's some hotline stuff. I wish you all luck. It's been such an honor to work with all of you, and I'll be taking a day of PTO today. So this is the entire Slack message that The Verge and CNN and others kind of report on, which is fine, but it does take on this look of somebody that's disgruntled and doesn't believe in the direction of the company and leaving. Now, will the FTC actually do billions in a penalty? We have to find a penalty first, right? The fact that you change the way that you are actually approving products doesn't mean that that new way is wrong. You're going to have to actually get there. This is a person that feels that it's wrong. That's fine. Honestly, Elon Musk buys Twitter both to troll and because he thinks that he can improve its outcomes. Do I know that he can? No. But new management always does this kind of thing, goes and sees if they can improve these outcomes. So we'll see. That's the first article. I wanted to comment on The Verge kind of reporting on it without looking at things, sourcing these things just by, well, this person said this thing, and that kind of stuff, because we see it so often in headlines. And we see, I anticipate, I believe, the FTC will. That kind of thing is very forceful. It's very rhetorically passionate. But unless they have a crystal ball, they're not going to be able to go and see the future, which is exactly what Britt winds up saying here in Super Chat. HP says, catching all Hangouts and Headlines Live is the only thing that brightens up days. I need to sign into work an hour early. Oh, that's awesome, HP. That's great. And then Britt says, the FCC will. He can predict the future. We don't actually know the gender of this lawyer. We can predict the future. Yep. It's a worthwhile concept to actually go. He said that she said, so I said, is exactly right. And that doesn't make this wrong. You know, some people come in and say, well, do you distrust it? It's like, no, I think there's stuff going on at Twitter. I think by the time that you're reporting as truthful, right? Musk's personal lawyer is telling people, says The Verge in the headline. We call this headlines because a lot of people don't get past the headlines. A lot of people don't get past the first paragraph or the first three paragraphs. You go there and say Musk's personal lawyer is telling people This is not qualified by some lawyer that we know who it is, and we're not going to tell you, is saying these things, that they overheard this. They're just going to go with this is happening. They also describe it as a personal lawyer when the lawyer in their Slack channel announces this individual as the head of legal at Twitter. I just was very disappointed in the way The Verge decided to present this and the way a lot of folks kind of dove on this throughout the day. Now, this wasn't the end of Twitter's news day. It would have been if we were just doing the video that I had planned to start out with. No. We got a lot more from Twitter happening. Here's a CNN Business article from 10 p.m. last night that talks about the day Twitter had. And I don't know if it's fully updated. We'll see it when we read it. Elon Musk's Twitter faces its Titanic moment as executives and advertisers flee while trolls run rampant. When have trolls not run rampant on Twitter, I ask you? All right, CNN Business article, 10 p.m. last night. Let's see what they've got. The world is watching as the world's richest man single-handedly destroys one of the world's most powerful and important communication platforms just weeks after acquiring it for $44 billion. Wow, what a line. Do we think Elon Musk is destroying Twitter? A. Do we think Twitter is one of the most powerful and important communication platforms on Earth? B. I use Twitter a lot. I'm a little bit too close to it to be able to evaluate that. I do know it only has 250 million users. You talk about WeChat, you talk about Facebook, you talk about other app providers for communication services. It does not really register at the high end of those lists, but it's always favored journalists. Twitter made a very wise move early on with giving the verified check mark to journalists. And then journalists write stories, and those stories often say how important Twitter is. Do you think Twitter is that important? I don't know. Is Elon Musk destroying it? And of course, the world is watching the dramatic spectacle unfold on where else? Twitter. That's another aspect of this that's very interesting, right? If you've been using Twitter for the last 14 days since Elon took ownership and you're not paying attention to the stories, the news articles, the headlines, videos, or what have you, chances are your experience on Twitter is not super different, other than the fact that so many people on Twitter are talking about how different it is. If you ignore those particular tweets and those particular communications, Twitter is still Twitter. Twitter is still just communicating with people, putting up my videos, talking with folks, DMing with folks. And it hasn't really changed experientially other than the stories about how Twitter has changed and it's being destroyed. So we'll have to see what happens from there. We're going to talk about the official tweets and the Twitter blue and everything else. But CNN starts out by saying it's being destroyed. It's hard to succinctly summarize the absolute chaos that has consumed Twitter over the last 12 hours as Elon Musk continues to wreak havoc on the Silicon Valley company. I mean, these are checks you are writing here, CNN. I mean, is it an absolute catastrophe? We'll see. It feels like the beginning of the end, honestly. One recently laid off Twitter employee said Thursday evening, describing the company as the Titanic with everyone looking for lifeboats. This is a recently laid off employee? Okay. I mean, it's definitely the end of your Twitter experience. I don't know. Several of those employees apparently are top executives. Platformer scooped Thursday evening that trust and safety head Yoel Roth had resigned. Bloomberg reported that its advertising chief Robin Wheeler was on the way out. That proves to be wrong. This should be updated. And early in the day, we learned that Twitter's chief information security officer, Leah Kistner, resigned, as has chief privacy officer Damian Kieran. So most of the head officers here are leaving the Twitter company. And we know that. Is that the end of the company? Depends on how you feel about Twitter leadership before Elon Musk took over, in part. To make matters worse, the exits of Kistner and Kieran come after a senior member of Twitter's legal team warned in an internal company message, that takes us back to the article we were just looking at, that Musk's sole priority was recouping the losses he's incurring as a result of failing to get out of his binding obligation to buy Twitter. Now, this is mind reading here. I failed to mention when we were reading this. Well, he's definitely trying to make more money off of Twitter, and he's going to move towards subscription models, which we'll see again in another article, over advertising, because he thinks advertisers control some of the content that can appear on the platform. He's not wrong there. But is that just a result of him being resentful of buying Twitter? I don't know. The employee added that Musk was unconcerned about potential liability before the Federal Trade Commission, which seemingly raised eyebrows at the federal agency. A spokesperson for the agency said it's tracking recent developments at Twitter with deep concern. This is all hearsay, like triple level, but it's fine. And the fact that Elon Musk sent out an email saying, no, comply with the FTC requirements. is not appearing in this article. No CEOs above the law, et cetera, et cetera. But Musk has several other distressing problems as well. The loss of the senior executives, especially Roth and Wheeler staying, hang on, will make it extraordinarily difficult to lure already skeptical advertisers back to the social media site. And with Musk effectively nuking verification on Twitter, giving way to an explosion of trolls and others creating imposter accounts. Let's see if this is the article I have teed up for this. No, not quite. It's hard to see why advertisers would put their money and faith into Twitter. So the ad exec is staying. We're going to talk about the Twitter Blue stuff because I do think Elon Musk has made massive errors there. So we'll discuss that. And given that Twitter heavily relies on advertising revenue, the developments spell exceptionally troubling news for the already imperiled company, which is why Musk perhaps is already floating the possibility that Twitter might collapse. In his first all-staff email, where he abruptly announced mandatory return to office, Musk warned that the economic picture ahead is dire and said without significant subscription revenue, there is a good chance Twitter will not survive the upcoming economic downturn. Now, if I could be frank, this kind of message, especially for tech companies, and especially for ones that I have personal knowledge of, is going out across the board to a lot of people. The economy is not in good state, especially for these kinds of companies. And so I don't know whether the context here is enough to say Elon Musk is telling his people that Twitter is doomed, or just that the economy is going to be really bad and we're going to have to make sure that we are buttoned up to try to survive it. In his first meeting with Twitter employees, Bloomberg reported that Musk said bankruptcy is on the table if the company doesn't start generating more cash. Bankruptcy is always on the table. Maybe Twitter will find a path forward, but the road ahead looks quite arduous. As the nonprofit watchdog Accountable Tech put it Thursday evening, I have no idea what their background is, this hellscape is going to get more hellish. Why is everybody calling it a hellscape all of a sudden? I feel like y'all are watching headlines. More hate speech and harassment, more deception and impersonation, more privacy and security risks for all of us. We would once again tell advertisers to jump ship, but at this point, no CMO in their right mind needs that advice. That's the chief marketing officer, the ones that are in charge of the budgeting for buying ads on various platforms. So Twitter, you'll never hear me say it's not a hellscape. Here's a lot of ads for CNN. You'll never hear me say it's not a hellscape, because it is. There's a lot of bad actors on there. There have been from the start. And I don't agree with Musk's management style. So I'm sitting here as a sympathetic reader of an article like this one. But I can also sit here and say, he might think that saying, hey, if we don't get our stuff together, bankruptcy is in the cards, is worthwhile to share with his employees to get their feet in the fire. He might think that the economy is going to dovetail, is going to dive as badly as he thinks it is, and that Twitter needs to get all of that stuff going in order to make this work. And he also might be an idiot. I'm reserving the right to say that, because what he is doing with verification is silly, is absolutely silly. Now, The Verge gets the correction that I was just talking about in the CNN article. Twitter loses exec leading trust and safety, but not its head of ad sales. They actually reported that they had left. But here is the important paragraph from this story. Wheeler directed a Twitter Space meeting this week with Musk to try and calm advertisers concerned about the future of the platform. After news of her resignation broke, she tweeted, "I'm still here," but didn't reply to comments asking for clarification on what she meant. Kurt Wagner tweeted, "Plot twist, I'm told while Wheeler did indeed resign earlier today, Elon convinced her to stay, and Casey Newton corroborated the claim." So maybe this is a kind of weak hold on this particular executive, but this is an important executive for Twitter to try to massage the relationships that Twitter has with advertisers. And it would be nice to see, CNN at least get that correction right when it's publishing at 10 p.m. when The Verge publishes here, I think at 5 p.m. But that's fine. It's CNN, folks. What can you expect? And so Twitter is going through a transition. Twitter was always going to go through a transition. Usually you see these things happen a little bit more behind closed doors. You don't see massive changes in the tech company or its product or its service publicly, like we are seeing with Twitter Blue and the verification check marks and the problems that arrive from there. You usually see a months-long stint where they evaluate what's working and what doesn't work, what employees are going to be problems for the new management style, and you have them resign kind of quietly, not all in a group if you can avoid it. And clearly Elon Musk, and the way he treats the company, the way he treats the employees and the direction he wants to go, is distinct enough from the way Twitter had been operated that there's a kind of massive just fracture when those two things meet, and he's losing everybody at the executive staff. Does that mean he can't replace them? No. Does it mean that Twitter is doomed? No. Twitter can probably still operate in a relatively kind of loose, light mode without all of the extra stuff that they were doing and still function without a ton of extra support. But is it going to be exactly what Elon Musk wants? Is he going to try to liquidate it? Is it going to go through more tumult in the near future? I would say yes. And everything that he has done so far kind of points to that fact, leading us to talking about good old Twitter Blue. So if you were with us for Muskapalooza earlier this week, you know that Twitter Blue is a service that Twitter has sold for, I think, a few years now. It may be less. And it was basically just get some new features for Twitter. Organize your bookmarks a little bit better. Here's an undo button in case you have a typo in your tweet. Just nice to have things that probably should be extended to the full populace, but Twitter was looking for ways to make money. Well, Twitter also had something called a verification checkmark, a blue check that you might be familiar with as a concept that was given to people of notoriety. Generally speaking, it was politicians, really high-level celebrities, and journalists. Journalists basically needed to have no followers and no support on Twitter to get that blue check mark. And this led to a kind of VIP club mentality in the Twitter space where journalists, primarily journalists, would go and be authoritative when maybe they didn't deserve to be treated as authoritative. And this led to a kind of elites versus plebes kind of feel on Twitter. And Elon Musk has been bothered by that for a long time. He's been speaking out about that. And others on Twitter have been speaking out about that as well. Now, Elon rolls into Twitter looking to make money. He says, you know what? We're going to sell those verification check marks. If you subscribe to our new service, which we're going to raise the price up from $3 or $4 to $8, then you are going to have a check mark next to your name. Okay. Well, silly me and my naivete, if you go watch my earlier videos, I assume that just means that you're going to pay for it, but they're still going to verify you. They're still going to verify that you are who you say you are. No, Rick. You are being silly on these particular topics. We're not going to engage in any verification at all, which leads to absolute anarchy on Twitter. So Twitter Blue goes and launches, I believe on Wednesday. I think it was the day after the election. Launches on Wednesday, and checkmarks start proliferating around with such awesome messages as Nintendo of America, with this message from Mario of Super Mario Brothers fame, right? Nintendo of America. Now you can see that the profile name is actually Nintendoofus. It's not real. But if you wanted to, you could make something that was a lot closer to saying Nintendo of the US here. And well, you get stuff like this. In the video game sphere alone, says Ars Technica, fraudulent checkmarked accounts appearing Wednesday night included Nintendo of America showing Mario flipping the bird, Valve announcing a new game, Ricochet, Neo, and Prime, Rockstar announcing a new trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6. In the world of sports, a fake LeBron James claimed he was requesting a trade, a fake Aroldis Chapman said he had re-signed with the Yankees, and a fake Adam Schefter reported on the departure of Las Vegas Raiders coach Josh McDaniels. Now, these are just examples. They really are rampant on Twitter, and it's worthwhile to note that all of these are in violation of the rules. Right? They really are. They have been from the start. This isn't a free speech kind of concept. This is an identity theft kind of concept. You can report impersonation accounts. You can get those impersonated accounts blocked, removed. And as Ars Technica reports, they're happening pretty quickly. You've got checkmarked accounts, gleefully imitated political figures, Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani, British MP Tony Blair, U.S. President George Bush. And for careful Twitter users, there's a way to tell, but it isn't easy to do when you're looking specifically at your stream. And more specifically, as was raised when we were talking about it earlier this week, when it is like a retweet or a like, that the way Twitter works is it tells you, oh, Elon Musk retweeted this. Elon Musk liked this, only it's not Elon Musk. It's some guy in some basement pretending to be Elon Musk. Now, I know it's in here in the article somewhere, but they do say here in Ars Technica that they are getting removed pretty quickly, but that damage can still be done. Maybe it's in their subheading. Most fake accounts are suspended quickly, but not before some brain damage is done. And like I said before, this is a massive mistake. They actually went out there and said, we're not going to verify these particular Twitter Blue subscribers. Now, you can click through on the check mark to see if they are verified as being notorious, being famous, or if they are verified because they are Twitter Blue. And they seem to have brought back the notion that there's going to be an official tag underneath the first check mark, making that the blue check mark officially for these kinds of things. It's all absolutely ridiculous. These are the kinds of things that I think are stupid. And Elon Musk is clearly taking that kind of Silicon Valley engineering, move fast, break things, fix them, break them more, but he's doing it in public. He's never run a social media company. And for all the world, he looks like an idiot. I'm sorry, Musketeers or whatever you want to call yourselves. I can't use Musketeers. I think that article was ridiculous about saying that. Musk fans, Musk aficionados, whatever it is that you might otherwise want to call yourselves. But he looks like an idiot, and that's not good optically. He might not be an idiot, but he looks like it. And so you see that at Twitter. You see that in these reports. You see that with Tesla stock prices. You say, oh, my goodness, what is this guy even doing? He's making these choices that are self-evidently problematic. You're going to sell these check marks. You're not going to verify them. You're not quick enough to get rid of anybody that wants to move these checks. And he says that he's raised the price of bots. He's raised the price of impersonations and junk on Twitter. And I think he lowered it. I think for $8 and a will now, you can go and you can do this whenever you feel like it. And the brands can't react fast enough. So there is going to be a brand revolt if he doesn't get his hands around this kind of issue. And it's essentially a self-own, right? What do you all think of this? Do you think Twitter's going under? Do you think it's super important that it not go under? Do you think the journalists are just high on their own supply and they think more highly of Twitter than it deserves to be thought of? What do you all think of all of these articles? I could have picked out 10 more, but I wanted to keep it svelte. I wanted to keep it a casual Friday. Let me know what you think. All right, let's take a look at some of these super chats that I tried to grab here, but I did it in the wrong way, so I can't bring them up on screen. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Nick says, been involved in 4 major layoffs. Rule 1, identify key players. Rule 2, pin them down. Never assume people want to stay. I'll be honest with you, Nick. When he goes and does this purchase, one of the things I would have assumed happens in that closing period between signing and getting things done is you go and you have talks with the people that you want to make sure stay at your company, and you get them nice contracts. You say, what is it that you need to stay here, friend? What is it that I can take from you? You've been here a lot longer than me. I want to know what you would do with this company if you were in charge. Let me talk about that. And how about your compensation? What does that look like for you, friend? What do you want to be invested in? I want to make sure that we're rowing in the same direction. I want to make sure that you have skin in this game and have those conversations. It doesn't look like Elon Musk did that. Now, if we want to say Elon Musk is a genius and we want to say that he's doing all these things deliberately, you might say he didn't want to keep any of these people. But it certainly seems like he did. Certainly the people that survived the first culling on the first day he takes over, then survived the firings and the layoffs, and then leave, doesn't seem like that third layer are people that he wanted to lose. That also adds to this notion that he doesn't know what he's doing, that he's not making sense with how he is making these decisions. And I think that's what a lot of people are reacting to. Now, I would also caution that he knows a lot of people. He runs a number of companies. He can bring people in. He's got a deep bench of personnel that might be better for him and more better for his management style. But as of this moment, it looks like he doesn't understand what he's doing with running a social media company at all. So I hear you, Nick. I hear you. I know I saw another one here. Just hang on one second. Just Because asks, any guess as to how long until Twitter changes hands again? I don't know, honestly. So Elon Musk will lose some money if the company just goes under or goes bankrupt or does these various things, but he won't lose it all. It's not his $44 billion. He leveraged the buyout. And so it's possible Twitter is taken over by its shareholders or by the banknote holders at some point. And then I don't know how it'll be run from that point in time. But I think Elon Musk is trying to put the fear of God in his employees. And I don't know whether that's going to be an effective way to run Twitter. I don't know what the constituency, the composition, the character of the Twitter employee base that remains actually is. Certainly the quotes that we've gotten in those articles are from people that are leaving, right? The lawyer is leaving. The ex-employee says it feels like the Titanic. Okay, I mean, you were fired. I get that. But you're an ex-employee. So it's going to feel like the Titanic for you. That isn't terribly informative to me as to how Twitter is actually operating on the inside. I don't know. You're going to need some more insider reports. You're going to need some more reports that are vetted. And you're going to need to trust in the reporting, especially if they don't provide source material, which I don't know that we're in a position to do on this particular topic, because the journalists that I am seeing all seem aligned with effectively Twitter was a great place before. It was fantastic. It was an oasis, an Eden on the internet. And now this jerk has come in and we're going to say very bad things about the way he's operating. Now, I think he has given them plenty of arrows in their quiver to fire at him, right? I think he's given them a lot of ammunition on this type of stuff, but we do have to take it with a grain of salt because journalists are getting demoted in the Twitter ecosphere, right? Any old Joe can have a verified badge right now. Elon says that's to democratize journalism. Honestly, when The Verge reports Incuriously on something like that Slack screed, I tend to agree with Mr. Musk that you shouldn't just assume that somebody that has a masthead at The Verge is more authoritative than someone that can just analyze these topics as they happen. It just so happens that they're the ones reporting on that primary source material of that Slack message, but that's it. That's all they have. So you can interpret that on your own. You don't need to have some gatekeeper tell you what it says. And I think that that is useful. Obviously, here in Headlines, it's been one of our constant motivations is to say we can critically think. We don't have to take any given author's view of the world as the only view that is sacrosanct. And that is a kind of democratizing of journalism. But the way they've done Twitter Blue to say we're not going to verify anybody at all, to me, I think you can justify the $8. If you say, you know what, it costs a little bit of money to do background. It costs a little money to verify. I need $8 to make that make sense for us. I think you can justify it. I think you can justify it on that basis. And we're not going to verify. Here's a check. Okay. And now you've developed a second level of checks. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. It sounds like Star-Bellied Sneetches. Anyway, is it going to change hands? Probably. Is it going to change hands soon? I don't know. The Heathers, listen, look, he makes horrible choices, baby, with Amber Heard. Well, Elon Musk has made a certain number of choices in his private life that are ones that I would not recommend. But yeah, it might be. It might be that you could look at that and say he's just a bad judge. He's just a bad judgment man. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. But I'd like to think he's not just exploding $45 billion in value. And yet he's certainly not doing things the way that I would be doing them. And then I think I see Papa Hoeg in here. All right, Papa Hoeg, what kind of fire do you have for me this morning? I love that the elite are rioting because their verified checkmark has become meaningless. Musk has every right to correct this nonsense and make money. Too bad. Well, that is the alternative take, right? Musk rolls in, wants to make money, has the right to make money. He just spent a lot of it to get control of this organization. And the person that is making that Slack channel message and the people that are reporting on the situation here are essentially disgruntled ex or soon to be ex employees. I don't necessarily disagree, but just the fact that he has the right to go and make money and to try to make something out of this thing doesn't mean that he's making the right choices. Right? And I think just schadenfreude for the journalists on Twitter is not enough to actually fuel your company or to make payroll. So I do think Elon Musk has to get that troll hat off a little bit and stop being a troll and start thinking about the legitimate ways to make money. I think that he had that kind of come to Jesus moment when he starts making all those advertiser calls and calling these meetings and things like that. He also knows he has a leaky ship, right? The other aspect of this is the reason there are so many messages, the reason there are so many news articles is that the employees that disagree with him that haven't been fired yet are leaking all over the place. Everybody has a favorite contact at the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Verge, Vox, wherever at this point. And so all of this stuff is leaking out. Now, message one might need to be, and that might be why he called an employee meeting, this has to stop. We can't be leaking out everything that's happening at the company to these people that want to see it destroyed. Do you want to keep your job? Do you want to keep this platform that you've worked so hard to build? Then it needs to stop. It needs to stop being leaked. And I don't think he's got a handle on that at all. So yes, I tend to agree that you bought something when you bought the company. Hey, I'm in the mergers and acquisitions business, but that doesn't mean what you are deciding to do with it makes sense or is a good idea. So thank you for the super chat, Pops. I agree. Simply Bell agrees with you. I agree with Papa Hoeg. It's a whole message. Absolutely. FTC says what they can do with the data. Yes, the FTC says they can do with the data what they say they were going to do with the data. Transparency is the most important thing when you're talking about data and security and these types of things. And the FTC has certain controls and compliance things. And the FTC might decide to cause, hey, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a headline that says FTC to open investigation. FTC likes to do that and is looking at more carefully at Twitter on these various things. But it seems difficult for me to understand exactly how what they have done so far is an additional risk. Changing Twitter Blue to add a check mark, which is effectively all they did, doesn't heighten any kind of data or privacy issues. Does it make impersonation more likely? Yes, but that's not exactly what the FTC is talking about in their consent decree. They're specifically talking about getting information into Twitter and using it in a way that you did not tell the people that gave you that information you would use it. So in that kind of understanding, I don't see how what they've done with Twitter Blue is exactly the same kind of thing as what the FTC did. The lawyer in the Slack message seems to be suggesting that she foresees that there will be more stuff that they are asked to do that could potentially run up against that consent decree. That's fine. We can all foresee whatever. And in her reasoned judgment or his reasoned judgment, they can say, yes, I think that there's going to be problems in the future. Certainly engineers have dealt with those kinds of problems all the time. You can go read Twitter threads or forum posts or articles about engineers that are asked to do bad things by management and hopefully reject them. And hopefully that would be the case here. But Elon Musk has said now in the letter that we have seen, comply with the FTC. I'm not looking to break the FTC. The only thing contrary to that is a lawyer getting angry on Slack saying that they heard someone else say that they heard Elon Musk say that they don't care about the FTC. That's not good enough for me remotely. And so, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have any particular love of Elon Musk, and I do enjoy the Twitter platform. But I also don't mind seeing things change as long as there is some thought put behind the changes that are implemented. So I'm in two minds on this. It's Schadenfreude. I apologize. I'm not German. None of my pronunciations of German words are going to be perfect. So I certainly apologize for not pronouncing it correctly. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Twitter. Ardo says Twitter's a business. They forced Twitter to buy it. He owns it. He has every right to do with what he wants with it. Yes, of course, the they there are different theys, right? They forced Twitter to buy it is the stockholders. The owners of the company forced them to buy it. Those are notably not the employees. So the employees just had the captain of their ship change while they're on the rapids. And they're looking at the captain and saying, wow, this guy, I don't know that he knows what he's doing. And he's not listening to us. And they're probably working themselves into a fervor a little bit behind the scenes. This can happen if you don't have a good plan for transitioning a company that you just purchased. I don't think Elon Musk had a good plan other than making a Twitter video with the sync. And so it's possible he just has a completely uncontrollable, unuseful employee base, which is its own problem, that is just going to mutiny on him no matter what he does. But it's also possible that Elon Musk is not doing the things that he needs to do to go and win over the folks that actually have to make his product and service. It's a two-way street on this kind of stuff. Jonas Atlas says, if anyone can have a check mark and it's not even identity verified, you might as well not bother. Well, yes, except for right now we're in this transition period, right? If I'm being generous to, Mario giving the bird here, it's that much like when Elon Musk took over, there's a certain amount of, this new thing, this new button I can hit, this new thing I can do is fun and attractive, and I'm going to do that thing so that I can show off or be a troll or whatever it is. And Elon is the king troll, and I'm going to, ingratiate myself with Muskatopia, whatever it is that is your thought process when you make this kind of thing. Or maybe you're trying to show off a security problem, right? Look what you can do with your Nintendo of America blue check mark. But I still think, especially in this transition period, there's enough people that don't subscribe to Twitter Blue, and there's enough people still on Twitter and that treat that blue check mark as something authoritative. And I would never have recommended to do this because there are a lot of idiots with blue check marks, believe you me. But if you still have that kind of mental scope and you're still saying, this one must be legitimate with a blue check mark, then now is the time to strike for this kind of mischief, this kind of misbehavior on the platform. So I think you'll see a lot of it right now. I suspect it will wear off in its usefulness. I think they will have some kind of official designation, making the whole thing stupid. But I think it will generally wear off in this kind of stuff. We'll see. I continue to be worried not about Nintendo of America or Coke or LeBron James or anybody else, but the middle, the low-end internet celebrity, maybe the bank that can go and ask for financial information in DMs, right? That kind of thing, the thing that you might not even know about. And most specifically, the person of some prominence that doesn't use Twitter at all, that then appears on Twitter with a blue check mark. And if you're not verifying identity one little bit, well, okay, that's going to cause a problem in and of itself. But Twitter has the right rules in place. They just need to make sure that they can police them for identity theft. And, well, I don't think that anybody believes that they can police much of anything right this second. And they're probably right on that. Bound for Earth, thank you so much. Became a YouTube member. Welcome to the community. I hope you enjoy it here. Now, you're not really Dr. Pepper, are you? If you were to change your name to Dr. Pepper and put a check mark next to you on YouTube or Twitter, that would look just like Dr. Pepper. That's the kind of thing that Twitter is currently dealing with. Cole asks a question of Papa Hoeg. Have a debate with my dad here. I guess my only question for Papa Hoeg is who would be who the elite are.
Is it the Silicon Valley folks, politicians, influencers, reporters, corporations? I feel the elite is used as a catch-all nowadays. Yeah, it's a good point. I think that's a good kind of pointed question. I would say if we're looking at the people that treated that check mark as useful, as status, as something that gave them pride, that's who you're really aimed at when you're complaining about how Twitter operated. And for the most part, I would lay that at the feet of journalists. And that was because Twitter gave journalists special dispensation. If you were going to get a blue check mark, like my colleague Emily D. Baker, right? She was rejected for a blue check mark, like I think 6 times, if I recall correctly. She only got it when she appeared in the LA Times. And like that's the size that you had to get to. But if you wrote for the LA Times and you had 60 followers, you were going to get that blue check mark right away. And that gave journalists a kind of feeling of they are the arbiters of truth. This is how you kind of get into these disinformation and misinformation arguments as well. Who are you to do this? And you actually go on Twitter over the last week and talk about this blue checkmark thing and see journalists talking about it. There's a whole pushback of like, how dare anybody assume that we who have ethics and standards and review these topics could be challenged by Bubba living in his garage. It's like, okay. All right. I think you told me more about you than you did about me on this type of thing. And I have long espoused for everybody evaluating these things to the best of their ability. But I will also say I can't do this job in headlines without journalists. I don't have these investigative contacts. I can't report on a lot of this primary source material. I am very thankful for everybody that does, especially when they share that source material. And I think there's a lot of good journalists out there. But there are a lot of journalists that get high on their own supply, that think their farts smell like roses. And I think I would gather that's who most of us are talking about when we're talking about the Twitter scenario and blue check marks, generally speaking. Maybe you disagree. Let me know in the chat or in the comments of the video. We got a lot. Oh, we got people arguing about, let's see, Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude. Yeah? Close? Felt close. Mr. Waffle says, well, I doubt Musk has any scruples selling or abusing user data to make money if he thinks he can get away with it. That's where the FTC will probably have their elf eyes trained on, with the tongue sticking out emoji. Yes, Mr. Musk certainly has a history of basically saying whatever regulators, especially with the SEC, but I can't speak to whether or not he will steal your data or otherwise violate things. Certainly, if he does, it shouldn't be laid solely on his feet as the only person that has ever run a social media company to do so, given that every social media company has found itself in trouble with the FTC, right? Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of these companies have had issues with the FTC on this kind of stuff. So we'll have to see whether or not that goes against Elon Musk or not. Certainly he wouldn't want to do it immediately. And as Julia properly says, as I just mentioned, he's not the biggest fan of federal agencies. There's no question about that. And we still got people fighting about how I pronounce Schadenfreude, maybe. Give it a run. Journalists on Twitter are insufferable. Often, a lot of good ones out there. I always hate to generalize and put people in groups like that because there's a lot of people that I've communicated with in the journalistic sphere that have gotten me quotes, have gotten me clients I've had good communications with, and have treated my time with respect, my quotes with respect, and there have been ones that have been absolute asses. All right? That's your Friday, Casual Friday swear jar contribution there. That has absolutely happened. And there are certainly some that are just ridiculous on Twitter. I have the blue check. I'm the arbiter of truth. You cannot believe the misinformation from folks like Hoeg. Where's his check mark? Britt Cormier, I 100% think my farts smell like roses. Long dead, decaying roses. You don't want to challenge that belief. Trust me on that. LOL. I am going to accept your primary source material as it stands, Britt. You do not need to confirm this with me. I'm going to just allow it on faith. We don't do that here very often, but I'm just going to trust you on that. I also want to thank Jojo, who just gifted 5 more Hoeg Law memberships, constantly gifting memberships, Jojo. I really appreciate it. That is such awesome support for the channel. We have 900 people in chat right now talking with us about whether Elon Musk is going to doom Twitter to death or whether Twitter is going to survive or that Twitter isn't really that important and what are we even talking about. Goes a lot of directions here, folks, in Hangouts and Headlines. Brittany Phillips says, not being on Twitter was one of the best decisions I ever made for my mental health. Crying, laughing emoji. I don't think you're wrong, Brittany. Twitter is a constant kind of poking and prodding of whatever your emotional or psychological state might be, asking you to engage, asking you to fight, asking you to debate with people that are probably not good faith negotiators on these particular topics. But yet, I still say I've been able to see reasonable minds can differ proliferate a little bit there in the circles that I appear in. And I'm just so darn happy to see it. I'm just so darn happy to see people out there saying, you know what, we just disagree. That's okay. You're still a human being. And we're going to press on with this. We're going to make it through this together. And it's getting out there a little bit more. If this is what I wind up doing with my life, is helping to change people into thinking that everyone else isn't necessarily a monster, well, then I will consider it a life well lived. Bound for Earth says, I wouldn't say just elites. The checkmark did play a role in helping to curb scamming and phishing. It needed changes, but this solves none of the issues with checkmarks and only inserts new ones. I don't disagree. I think verification has a place, and I think it was useful to be able to look at the blue checkmark and be like, all right, this is the legitimate Nintendo or what have you. Now, you have to do a couple more clicks to get into there. I honestly, well, I do know the answer to this, but I wanted to say I don't know why there weren't just different colors of checkmarks or some other designation. And the answer is he wanted to sell that elitism. He wanted to sell that thing that people couldn't get. If you've been on Twitter for a long time, even if you were relatively popular, right? I have 31,000 followers on Twitter. There's no way I could get a blue check mark. And a lot of people resented that. A lot of people resented being talked down to. A lot of people resented that kind of separation in that place. And so he said, fine, here's a blue check mark. Now, he's also saying with his other hand, okay, but that blue check mark doesn't mean what it used to mean. You need to have an official designation, and we'll see how that all works out for him. But I do think it had value as long as you were verifying identities. When you're not verifying identities at all and giving out blue check marks, I think you really busted the system. I had assumed that there would be a verification step, even in Twitter Blue, that, okay, what you're doing is you're paying for that verification step to take place. No, sir. You could be anybody. You could change your name to anything. And they're reaping the whirlwind on this stuff now, right? Can we get that voice tone accent as an audio clip? The haughty elites? I don't even know what I did. I think it was British. You let me know. Folks, do the YouTube things. Hit that like button, ring that bell if you like the content and discussion. Absolutely, 900 of you. Hit the like button. I've got a special surprise for you at the end of this video with the new addition to the store and promises of new additions to the store, including, I don't know, a new dino? I don't know. Do I have that? We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Did your most recent ABK videos get removed? Not to my knowledge, SSJ4 Omega. I will check on that after this video. I didn't get any emails about it, so I will look into that, but I don't believe any of my most recent ABK videos got removed. They are kind of separated between video on demand and live, because I do some of those live, so you might want to check the new live tab on YouTube. That's probably what happened, I would guess. But let me know, and I will check in on myself. Carrie Harvey says verification should not be associated with number of followers. You should be able to be verified without having millions of followers. Yeah, I think there's certainly a space for that. I think what you didn't want to do at the time was just use Twitter resources for anybody if they weren't going to pay, because it was a free kind of thing. So yeah, I don't think number of followers is the perfect kind of thing, but I don't think that just because I have a byline one place at some point, that was something that needed to be verified. I personally would have said you automatically get verified. You can use our service if you can show us somebody is impersonating you, right? That's what I would have done for verification. That's what YouTube did. I've given this story now a couple of times, but YouTube has a check mark. I have a check mark on YouTube. You can see that now, where there was somebody trying to get people's financial information. I said, YouTube, look at this. And YouTube said, yeah, absolutely. Here's a check mark. And to me, that's exactly what that process should be, is protection from impersonation. Everything else, authoritativeness, should not exist, right? You're verified in identity. You don't get stronger magical rhetorical powers for having a blue check mark bestowed upon you by a San Francisco company that is otherwise running a social media platform, right? Like that's not a good way to think about the information that you're getting. But I agree that it had value, and I agree that it shouldn't just be number of followers, definitely. Sarah says, not a fan of Musk, but in a time where Meta is laying off 11,000 employees, the silence about that is deafening. Well, to be fair, I had a Meta article lined up for one of these Hangouts and headlines, and other stuff came up that I wanted to cover first. So Meta might still be covered next week. Certainly what we are seeing is that the tech companies are not operated in the way that we would usually see from other companies. And in the pandemic, they massively increased their employee numbers because they were allowing remote work. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is behind this, but they increased it so much that when they're now paring back on that, it's huge numbers of people. Twitter lays off 3,000. Facebook lays off 11,000. This is a big, big thing. Sharon says, I've had my mind changed, my thinking altered on more than one occasion in Hoeg's chat. This happens when you have well-meaning and thoughtful people here. That's the dream. That is the absolute dream. Having great conversations, understanding where other people are coming from, maybe changing your mind, or maybe just getting a better perspective on what another person thinks about something that you disagree with. 100%. Kate does say YouTube updated and put things in a different category tabs. They may be in a different location. I will look into it, Kate. Yep, they moved things into like video on demand, lives, and shorts. We still don't have shorts up. Maybe I'll do a community poll. What kind of shorts content would you even want from me? It's just me in my shorts. It's just 60 seconds of me standing around in my shorts. We hashtag YouTube shorts. We call it a day. I can hear co-counsel in the other room saying, no. Okay. All right. Peter is my first name. Elon Musk bringing Tesla engineers to see what's going on at Twitter sounds like good pre-planning to me. Do I have bad information from David Betta, Patrick Value Entertainment? Genuine question. Thumbs up emoji, mountain emoji, coffee emoji. So a lot of this stuff is rumors and innuendo. I think he does have folks that he's been working with at Tesla or SpaceX or wherever, working with him. But I don't know if that's good pre-planning as much as getting the band together. Certainly, as it has happened in the last 14 days, it doesn't look like strong pre-planning, but that is a little bit of hindsight is 2020. They might have thought they had a good pre-plan in place, and they just found that the friction between the existing employees and the Musk team was too much. That can happen as well, but you do try to get in front of that. And every time that you don't get in front of that is a certain kind of failure, right? The fact that he didn't get in front of that, the fact that this is all happening to him right now, we can observe as not ideal. And if it's not ideal, then something went wrong. It doesn't mean it was avoidable. It doesn't mean that he's an idiot, but it does have the optical look of that. And then Peter's my first name replaces Patrick Bet David. Yeah. Look, it's the same kind of answer. And thank you so much for the super chats. I think he's probably got people that he works with, people that he trusts. I don't know if they're on a formal basis. I don't know if they're leased from Tesla. I don't know how that would be going down behind the scenes because they are separate companies with different revenue and different cost structures and things like that. So I'm not disagreeing with you that he had a plan, maybe, but that plan doesn't appear to be working out. And that's its own kind of thing to comment on. Vincent Rando, happy Skyrim anniversary. Oh my God, did Skyrim originally release? What year was that, Vincent? Is it 10 years ago, 12 years ago? Anna, please don't make videos in shorts. Have some decency. There may be children in the room. Well, I mean, first of all, I already make videos in shorts in the summer. I mean, that's just how this all works. But I just laugh at, I don't know exactly what to do with shorts. I've been thinking about potentially doing a too long didn't read kind of thing on existing videos, but we'll see. I don't know. YouTube's pushing it very hard. I don't always do what YouTube wants me to do, but they are definitely pushing it hard for us to get engaged with shorts. And I don't know. I could do Hogan dance videos in a dino costume. Nothing says professional and somebody that you should trust for legal analysis more than having videos of me dancing in a dinosaur costume. One of those inflatable ones. There you go. It's all good stuff. Well, folks, I think we're here just about at the end of the internet here on Hangouts and Headlines. We've been on for about an hour and a half. Elon Musk certainly faces headwinds at Twitter. That is without the journalists adding a little bit of their extra color to that. But I'm very interested in seeing what you guys think, whether you think Twitter is important at all. Leave comments to this. Share this video with people. Do the likes, subscribes. And before I leave you, I do want to say CoCounsel has been working very, very hard to add some new things to the store. And I can reveal one of the first of those today, which is the first appearance, the premiere, introducing Christmas Gaming Dino. And this is a Christmas Gaming Dino on a supersized 15-ounce mug. There is more to come. If you can't read it at the top of the store here, we've got holiday and winter items coming soon. And by soon, we mean very soon. Watch this space on the store. Check out for updates on the store. I think it's 25 items. I can't remember what CoCounsel told me. We got a lot of stuff coming up, but Christmas Gaming Dino will be appearing on at least some of them. Check them out. Go check the store. I will probably say this again at Lawyers and Dragons tomorrow. If you want to catch Lawyers and Dragons, it's 10 a.m. tomorrow. I've got CoCounsel running in.
Like in 1 hour, everything will be there.
1 hour, she says. She was trying desperately to get it up for this episode, but you got to make sure that we get the samples, then everybody's happy with everything. In 1 hour, the store will have a massive update. So please do check that out. Maybe I'll try to flag it on Twitter of all places, in the community post to mention that this stuff is happening. You'll also see a note above that I believe says, if you want it by Christmas, it's about December 10th that you have to get those orders in. And yeah, she's got so much stuff she's adding to the store. I can't thank co-counsel Mrs. Hoeg Law enough for all of this stuff, because none of this would happen in this store without her. Like, none of it. She's got update plans. I think she's got a 10-year plan, folks. So she's really enjoying it. She's really enjoying talking with you all about the stuff that you're getting and seeing it and various people's faces and making them happy. So check that out. That's the sales pitch here, but it's really, really an awesome update for the store. It is holiday. It is winter. A lot of very requested items coming. Please do check those out. And thank you so much for joining me on Hangouts and Headlines today. As I said, got Lawyers and Dragons tomorrow. Same or original bat time, original bat channel, 10 a.m. Saturday morning. Check that out. And then the only thing I would also add, I'm still planning on having a Monday Hangouts and Headlines, but if you can't hear it, I do have a little bit of a throat tickle going on. And if I need to, I might wind up taking a little bit of a break at the top of next week. I will put a community chat post and a Twitter tweet up if that winds up happening. I'm anticipating still having a normal week next week, but I do want to reserve for that in case I do cancel an episode. Everybody else, everybody else, have a great weekend. Have a wonderful time with your family, your friends, whatever it is that you're doing, seeing Wakanda Forever, seeing other movies, watching other television shows. It has been my absolute pleasure to have Hangouts and Headlines with you today and this entire week, and I will see you on the next one.